But I want to start with banning books. This is an amazing piece. Media Matters for America, MediaMatters.org is their website. They do some just absolutely incredible research. And one of the real leading organizations, it appears, based on what I'm seeing over on their website, in favor of banning books in our schools is this group called Moms for Liberty. And let me just share some pieces of this. This is Olivia Little writing for MediaMatters.org. The headline over at MediaMatters.org: banning books about Martin Luther King Jr. and opposing school district desegregation efforts inside Moms for Liberty's deep ties to the anti-civil rights movement. So this group has, in recent days, apparently removed some of their past from their website. And I think this is like consequential stuff, stuff we should be paying attention to. There was a June article in the far-right Epoch Times reporting that the Deskovich is the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Tina Deskovich. Quote, Deskovich believes that CRT, critical race theory, is divisive, denies the value of an individual based on the content of their character and their actions. The group's official social media page, according to Media Matters, included hashtag StopCRT as recently as October 14th. So a month ago, they were taking these positions. As of June 13th, they had a page up on their website titled "Help Moms for Liberty Stop Critical Race Theory." They have since deleted that page. They even tried to solicit donations based on this. Donate here to help us fight critical race theory. That is gone. They have chapters around the country. They're broken down by counties. In Williamson County, Tennessee, the chapter hosted CRT 101, Critical Race Theory 101, inviting speakers to repudiate critical race theory. Robin Steenman, I'm reading now from Media Matters for America, head of the Williamson County Moms for Liberty chapter, vocally opposes critical race theory, saying critical race theory, this is a quote, critical race theory claims to solve racial discrimination by promoting racial discrimination. She continues that it is destructive and divisive. Now, this is the same county chapter that had a list of books of concern that included Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington, the March to Washington, because of, quote, photographs of political violence. And another book, Ruby Bridges Goes to School. Ruby Bridges, you'll recall, was a young woman back in the day. She's still alive, I believe. She's in her 90s now, maybe younger than that, who was, the first young black child to integrate a school. Ruby Bridges Goes to School, and they want to ban that book because of racist remarks in it, of course, made by white people. The group also disapproved of First Nations of North America, Plains Indians, because it, quote, paints white people in a negative light. We're not supposed to acknowledge our history? Apparently not. And here's where it gets even weirder. Nationally, again, this is from this Media Matters piece. Nationally, Moms for Liberty recommends a book called The Making of America by W. Cleon Skousen. They say this is a helpful text when discussing the founding documents of the United States. So what's in this book that Moms for Liberty is apparently recommending? Well, he makes the argument that, quote, slavery is not a racial problem. In the history of the world, nearly every nation has had slaves. The Chinese kept thousands of slaves. Babylon boasted of slaves from a dozen different countries. The dark-skinned Hittites, Phoenicians, and Egyptians had white slaves. The Moors had black slaves. America had black slaves. The Nazis had white slaves. The Soviets still do, with several million white slaves wearing out their starved, near-naked bodies in slave labor camps. So the emancipation of human beings from slavery is an ongoing struggle. Slavery is not a racial problem. It is a human problem. Well, it is a human problem. But in the United States, as a result of laws passed in Virginia in the period from the 1630s right up through the end of the 17th century, slavery and race became essentially the same thing. And this is the history book that Moms for Liberty likes. Skousen, this is also from the book, calling slave owners, people who enslaved other human beings, quote, the worst victims of slavery, writing, quote, in some ways, the economic system of slavery chained the slave owners almost as much as the slaves. Really? You force somebody to work at free labor and you are in bondage? Skousen, the author of this book that Moms for Liberty is promoting, was a supporter of the John Birch Society that claimed, quote, African-American freedom movement is being manipulated from Moscow with the goal of creating a Soviet Negro Republic in the southern United States, end quote. The author of this book also has claimed that there is a global cabal of bankers control the world from behind the scenes, and communists are taking over local PTAs. He also believed, quote, the civil rights movement, acceptance of homosexuality, the rise of abstract art and modernism, and the advent of Medicare, Social Security, and other social safety net programs have all been part of a clandestine plot waged by communists or other dark forces to destroy the United States. Thanks a lot, Moms for Liberty. You wonder where this stuff is coming from? It's always been here. We've always had crazies in this country and racists in this country promoting this kind of stuff. I think the larger issue is, why are we ignoring that? Why do we want to ignore our past? I'll tell you a country that is not ignoring its past right now, Germany. I was reading, during the break, I was reading the New York Times from March 20th, 1933. It just happened. It was sitting in the back room. I went back to grab a cup of coffee, and there it was. New York Times, New York, Monday, March 20th, 1933. Now, keep in mind, 1933, Hitler had just taken power. This is March 20, 1933. My recollection is that the burning of the Reichstag was, well, I could be wrong, but it was very recent. The headline, German fugitives tell of atrocities at hands of Nazis. Keep in mind, 1933. Paris, March 19. Americans are arriving here from Germany, expressing more and more concern over the course of events in that country. Neither the full truth about them nor the implications arising therefrom are reaching the outside world, these Americans say. Nor can the truth come out except gradually and by stealth, and for excellent reasons. The first and most obvious of these is an ironclad censorship, more severe than Germany has ever known except in wartime. Now, keep in mind, this is 1933. You remember 1937 was the year Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine as the most popular politician in the world. This is 1930. He's been in power for less than a year. I read this and I think, okay, what if Trump did hold on to the White House? Back to the New York Times. Not only are all outgoing dispatches from accredited correspondents subjected to the closest scrutiny and passed only when certain objectionable subjects are either untouched or treated so innocuously that Nazi susceptibilities will not be offended thereby, but the sources of all information unfavorable to Nazi interests have dried up. You'll recall Adolf Hitler referred to the press in Germany as the Lügenpresse, the lying press, the fake news. The article continues. Virtually the entire socialist as well as the communist press in Germany is now prohibited. The centrist and neutral press is published under the shadow of instant suppression, should it include even the smallest term objectionable to the official rulers. Germans are forbidden to impart information to foreigners, with the result that none dares to visit, receive, or communicate by telephone with the foreign news writers. Telephone communications are tapped, and even the cafes and restaurants are full of Nazi spies and eavesdroppers. The official Wolf Telegraph Bureau is said to now be wholly in Nazi hands. It was sort of like, the AP of the day. And the other news agencies are not sending out anything but the most innocuous items. Police reports have become worthless. In fact, the police, where they do not ignore the Nazi outrages, actually cooperate with them under the pretext of maintaining law and order. This is Germany, March 20, 1933, the New York Times front page. The government, meaning the National Socialists, control of all news sources and publication outlets. Incidentally, it forbids even mention of the reasons for which any newspaper is suspended, has resulted in the promulgation of what even the Germans are said to regard as transparent fictions. Thus, all the outrages, all the violence now committed by persons, quote, masquerading in Nazi uniforms or, quote, professing to be Nazis, end quote. There is, of course, the New York Times notes, neither masquerading nor pretense. And the fiction, American Visitors Report, deceives no one in Germany. But it does maintain the spirit of Adolf Hitler's recent commands to his followers not to refrain from violence. Is this where we're going? Keep in mind, this was 1933. This was even before Lindbergh was defending Hitler with the American First Movement. Holy cow. When do we learn from history? And stop burning or banning books.